Good morning and midday, everyone. Thank you for registering for this Hill Shop, the Sankofa Formula. We are here with Dr. Rachel Harding, and I am just so happy that you could be here today and to really explain what this is. And the reason that this is important right now is because, I mean, it's obvious, right? We're having just a tumultuous time in the country and in the world, I would say. And for our community to have some methods, a process to be connected to things that empower us, um, I think is invaluable right now. And you coming from your family, I refer to your family as Black Gold. We have this wonderful uh, family of information and work in the community. And so I really appreciate you being able to be here and share with us today. So please welcome Dr. Rachel Harding. This is your
It
applause.
is an honor for me. Thank you for inviting me, Katrina. It's a pleasure to be here and happy to talk with you and all the folks who will join us.
Absolutely. So I this is a new, I want to say, I'm streaming this through YouTube, and this is kind of a new platform for me. So I'm going to be patient with this platform and allow people some time to log in, to log in and to find it. And it is going to work out. It's going to work out. So I just want to talk to you a little bit first about you and about your book to start. So let's start there. Tell us about you.
Well, let's see. I am from Atlanta, Georgia, originally. I was born and raised in the South. And although I have been away for a long time, I still feel like um, my heart is a Southern heart. My soul is a Southern soul. And I went to high school in Philadelphia and moved out here to Denver, Colorado with my family in the 80s and have been here permanently since about 1990.
Okay.
I teach at the University of Colorado in the Department of Ethnic Studies. I teach indigenous spiritual traditions, particularly spiritual traditions of the Afro-Atlantic diaspora, and a lot of other things. I teach African American history. I teach literature. I teach introduction to ethnic studies, and then with my cousin Gloria, I co-direct a project that my family developed initially in the 1990s called the Veterans of Hope Project, which essentially looks at the relationship between spirituality and social justice organizing through a variety of means, interviews with elder activists, public programs that give people an opportunity to reflect on and experience some of these connections through different ritual and spiritual traditions, particularly traditions coming from people of color around the world, the way in which African Americans and Latinx people and Native folks and Asian Americans have used our spiritual and cultural traditions to strengthen ourselves for the transformation of our societies. So, and I guess the only other thing I would add is my scholarship, the work that I do as a professor and as a scholar, is primarily in Brazil, and I study Afro-Brazilian religion in a specific way, but in general, looking at the way religion and culture have been used by people of African descent to maintain our humanity in traumatic circumstances. So, I study the traditions that our ancestors created in slavery, and that have continued to give us strength and guidance and vision in the generations after the legal end of slavery. But as we know, and as we're seeing, as you said, we are still very much in the midst of not just here in this country, but all over the world, in the midst of a world that is deeply impacted by anti-Blackness, by racism, by white supremacy. We need these alternative visions of what it is to be human in the world, and to be in connection with. I think African Americans and African American culture and religion give us a lot of models for that.
Wow. I have to write that down because that was such a powerful statement. We need an alternative vision to what it is to be human in the world. Oh my gosh. That is so profound right now, probably always, but we're in a special time where all of these different circumstances, which have probably always been there in some way or another, are converging, and everybody can see it. Um, so that's really interesting. One question that I had for you is, we have had conversations about epigenetics, and what is that, and how does it relate to, or actually provide some solutions to what we're experiencing now?
Well, I will say what I understand epigenetics to be, and I certainly appreciate your input, because you may in fact have more information about the concept than I do. But from what I understand, epigenetics is the study of the way our genes make adjustments based on the environment. So it's not so much a change in the actual DNA, but in the way the DNA expresses itself, given different things that are experienced by the people carrying that DNA, different traumas, different experiences. And so when I first heard about epigenetics, I was fascinated by that for a couple of reasons. One of the examples that I know has been studied by researchers, and has there have been a number of things written about it, is the way in which the trauma of people who went through the Jewish Holocaust during World War II, Nazi Germany, the way in which that impacted their genetics, and that aspects of that trauma are passed on to generations who may not have been necessarily, in the concentration camps or living in Europe at the time of World War II, but who, because of their connection to those ancestors, hold aspects of that trauma in their own bodies. And like a number of other African American scholars, when we began reading about that research, of course, we thought about our own experience and the way in which the trauma of the slave trade, the Middle Passage, the many generations of slavery here in the Americas, and then, of course, all of the years of Jim Crow, of segregation, and of just the structural assault on Blackness that exists in the modern world, in most societies in the modern world. And this thinking about how that impacts us in terms of our physical health, psychological health, of the health of our institutions. So on one hand, I think certainly anybody who has lived in a Black body in this country for more than 14 years is aware that there are significant stresses to that experience. At the same time, what I have been encouraged by is the thought that if our bodies, if our DNA, if our genetic structure holds the traumas, we also hold the healing.
That's right.
Because our ancestors found some kind of way. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here, and we wouldn't be here with, half the sanity that we that we have been able to maintain. But they found some kind of way and put into the culture some resources to help us remember who we really are, in spite of what the dominating, the oppressing society might try to tell us about who we are. Mm-hmm. And so my sense in terms of how that fits into epigenetics is that there really is something, and I'm speaking now from perhaps a more metaphorical and poetic stance than strictly scientific. I'm not a biologist or a chemist or a geneticist, but in terms of seeing the analogies from the perspective, from a philosophical or an artistic perspective, a poetic perspective, certainly we have been gifted resources to maintain our humanity by ancestors who went through horrible, horrible assaults and traumas. And so there's something in the lineage, in the physical lineage, and the cultural lineage, and the spiritual lineage, that feeding us a remembrance that we are human beings and that we have a very important role, I think, in the modern world to remind everybody else of what it is to be human beings as well. So anyway, I don't know if that, like I said, I'm not a scientist, but one of the beautiful things about about poetry for me is that it works in a way to help you see connections between things that you might not otherwise recognize as being there. And so, as a poet, I think my mind goes to kind of naturally looks, for the ways that the universe is connected, the world is connected, people are connected to each other.
We have a comment here. He says, my wife calls that Black girl magic.
Good.
That's a good say. I'll
Thank you.
that. I take that. Yes, that is what we're working.
That's good.
With. Oh my gosh. Everything you just said, I just want to let that simmer. Just let it simmer for a moment. But I want to keep going and get into some other questions as well. Now, what I think about is all the hashtags that we've had, right? We always have a new hashtag. There's so many. There's a whole list of names. But if we had hashtags when some of these things started, it might be the transatlantic slave trade, which started in the 1480s hashtag. It might be hashtag North American slave ship of 1619. That might be a hashtag. And then we can jump to Emmett Till. Emmett Till would have been a hashtag if we had this at the time. And then, a whole slew of other ancestors that succumb to the same fate as the ones that were the current hashtags that we're seeing now, and it just goes down the line. I kind of don't want to say it because it feels re-traumatizing to me, but we know what they are. They're the current ones, ancestors that are have become ancestors through brutality in current time that has sparked yet another push for Black life really does matter. Black life matters. So what's it going to be now? I mean, I don't want to see a new hashtag today, but it's almost as if we have to come to expect something else before this really changes, right? So many have been lost to this trauma and the savagery that we've seen. You've hinted on it, but how can we heal from that? How do you heal from that? I mean, it's so much. It's so much that, as you mentioned with epigenetics, this is part of our DNA, which also means it's part of theirs. So it's not that we have to take on the total, uh, the role of being the only ones who are doing the healing. Other folks got some healing to do too. But how do we do that?
Um, well, let me first say, I don't think I have any answers. What I do think I may be able to offer is just some approaches, some ideas about things that can help us get toward an answer of how to heal. First of all, we're in the middle of this, we're in the middle of this trauma, and I think also of a beautiful, a powerful global reaction, global response to these many centuries of anti-Black violence. This present iteration of the Black Lives Matter organizing, the protests, the reinvigoration of that movement is the contemporary, the now moment manifestation of something that has been building since we were first taken from the shores of Africa. Black people have always fought for our humanity, for our freedom, and as I was saying before, for an alternative vision of what the world can and should be. And we are just in this very particular moment that developed, as you just said, kind of in response to these just the most immediate of hundreds and thousands of murders, of state-sponsored deaths. And so I'm saying that to say the healing, I think in some ways, the protests themselves, the fact that all of these hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people are coming out into the streets, are both in the United States and lots of other places in the world. I'm sure a number of your people in your audience are aware that there have been massive protests in support of Black Lives Matter in London, in Paris, Auckland, right, in Brazil. I mean, all over the world, in West Africa and South Africa. So I would say that the fact that people are, even in the midst of the coronavirus, people are not crazy. People know that this is not a safe time in terms of the pandemic to be out in large groups, but the urgency is such, and the importance of this is such, that people are willing to take that risk and to stand in public with Black people and as Black people, saying this has got to stop. This has got to stop. You must killing us, and we have to have another kind of society. So part of the healing, in my mind, relates to the kinds of policy changes that our society has to have in order for Black lives to truly matter. And of course, a significant portion of that has to do with the way policing functions, or whether, in fact, we need police as we see them now. There are a lot of folks who are talking about the importance of defunding police, that is, taking money that in excess at this point is going to fund militarized policing in many cities around the country, and using that money to support healthy civic life, to support libraries, to support public schools, to support public health, to support green jobs, a green economy, to support really affordable housing. I mean, there's so many ways that as a multiracial democracy, we need to be using the resources that that we have in terms of tax dollars that are really very much at odds with this this move to support militarized police, as like probably in many cities that's the single biggest budget line.
Right.
There are many cities in the country, like Los Angeles, like Chicago, like New York, that spend over a third of their city budget on policing. That's crazy. That's crazy. There are all kinds of social services that are needed. There are all kinds of, I mean, how we do that and then say we don't have money for public schools, that we don't have money to make sure that people get the help that they, I mean, so for me, when I think about healing, I think about the kinds of reprioritizing we have to have for public policy in this country, so that we can really be a livable and beautiful and inclusive and welcoming democracy.
Yes.
We have to make, and we have to make those economic decisions differently. To me, that's one level, and a very important and necessary level of healing is at the level of policy, at the level of how we envision ourselves as a society and who we envision ourselves to be. Again, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be human, and what kinds of policies and what kinds of social arrangements are necessary to affirm and to build and to nourish the humanity in a given society. So at one level, that's where I would start. And then, there are other kinds of maybe more personal things, while we're in the midst of this, in terms of just how to try to take care of ourselves as we're being kind of bombarded with lots of very difficult information and images and experiences.
Absolutely.
Again, I would go back to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just.
I'm sorry, were you?
I'm just amen, and that's
okay. Okay. All right. Well, so on the more personal side, I'll just say a couple things quickly, and then I'm sure, Katrina, you have some thoughts on this too. But I was thinking about this morning, just in preparation for a conversation. And two kinds of things came to my mind. One is that passage in the Bible. I don't know exactly which one it is, but it's very well known. So as I say it, I'm sure that people will be able to find it easily. But the passage that says, "Be still and know that I am God." There's something.
Yes.
There's something about calming ourselves, centering ourselves, quieting ourselves, that actually puts us into connection with a much greater power, with the power of the divine, with the power of our ancestors. In fact, that's part of why I think that when we are asleep, sometimes when we're even just resting, maybe not fully asleep, but just relaxing, like maybe in savasana, in yoga, or just sitting quietly somewhere, insights will come to us, images will come to us, because
Mhm.
we're always connected to God. We're always connected to our ancestors. But sometimes we're so busy, we're so distracted, we're so, just involved in our daily lives that we aren't conscious of how much we are connected and protected and cared for by those who were here before us and by the great Almighty. So a piece of the self-care and the healing that I've been thinking about a lot, and probably a lot of us have, just in terms of this quarantine moment, because a lot of us have been
At the time.
home, if
Yeah.
we can, right, and had the time. There's something about that quiet
Mhm.
and the stillness that actually holds a lot of healing and a lot of strength for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That reminds me of different people. Women, I think, are feeling this in maybe a different way than men are. Children are feeling this in a different way than adults are. And one thing that I have been very conscious of is how women are dealing with this. It feels heavier than usual to me. Feels a little bit heavier, and I'm wondering if that's because we just have more information. I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that, but it gave me the curiosity of how what happens to us physically, to women, when we are in conditions like this. Now, given we are experiencing this on an emotional front, most of us are experiencing this on an emotional front. It's, everybody, we're not on a physical plantation, though some might argue. We're not in that condition, but we are still very aware of the pain that is out there, and it feels risky for us. It feels risky, for our loved ones to be out, for us to be out. And so, one thing that I know from a physical standpoint is our hearts are different from men's hearts. The hearts of women are softer. The tissue is physically softer than a man's heart. Our hearts carry things differently. We carry things differently in our body than men do. And in addition to the things that are happening, the political, social movement that's being pushed right now, um, we have to deal with that on top of the other stuff because we're still, as a group, we're still mistreated in the doctor's office. We still don't get the care that we're supposed to get. And then women have to worry about that extra that extra aspect of this, which is the care for the body of a woman. There are special things that we have to do for our body to keep it in pristine condition. And even in those times, I'm talking about when you go to the OBG, or just
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just the gynecologist or the OBGYN. There are things that have happened to us in those spaces that, I mean, you can't trust those systems after that. And so we don't even go in the way that we should as a group. So that is part of our trauma as well. With all of these things together, it's almost like, well, shoot, why should I even? You almost feel defeated, right? You can almost feel defeated because it's from every angle. So the question becomes, why should I even do this? This is what I'm thinking. Why? What is the point? If at the end of the day, if everything doesn't change at the end of the day, because it would have to, in order for things to be the way they should, it's almost everything that would have to change. The philosophy of the way that we're treated medically would have to change. You know, the way that we're
Yes.
treated in community with regard to policing would have to change. The way that
Yes.
we're looked at with respect
Yes.
to policy would have to change. So if any one of those doesn't happen, it's almost like we're in the same space, which is why I love what you were saying, because we've been here before and we have the tools. We have the tools, but we're not necessarily connected to people like you that can kind of bring that out and tell you, you know, here's a path. Here's something to think about. It's not an antidote. It's not a
Mhm.
it's not a what is it that we're it's not a cure. It's something, it's a thoughtful process that we have to be engaged in for it to work. It's not just take a pill and everything's going to be okay. We have to engage in all of the things um, that are needed to change those aspects of our life. We can't just expect it to change. We have to be the ones to initiate the change. And that's why, for me, you know, approaching life through the lens of health and wellness is so key, because that
Mhm.
connects to your Madi. I just made a new word. I said Madi, body, mind, and spirit.
Okay.
It connects all those things together. That's what I was trying to say. So, from your perspective, why should we even be concerned about healing now when we have all these different layers? Why should we even care about that right now?
Okay. That's not only is it a wonderful question and a hard one at the same time. I think it's one that a lot of people are asking in the midst of all of this. And I have two thoughts. And because I am just on this side of 60, and sometimes my memory fails me, I'm going to give you a hint. I'm going to say something else first, but I want to come back. I want to end with something my mother told me in the shower the other day. So if I forget what else I'm going to say,
Okay.
you remind me that that my mother told me in the shower. Okay. So,
Okay.
but before we get to my mom in the shower, um, what you were talking about initially, in terms of how everything, in order for Black people to be free, and in order for the world to be a world where everybody's humanity is recognized and seen and nurtured, what you just said when you started out your last set of comments, you said that basically everything would have to be different. Everything that we know, everything that we do, everything, the way that not just our society, but the modern world, its
Mhm.
economy, its politics, its gender relations, its racial relations, everything would have to be different. So what you've just said in some ways is very similar to a concept that a number of scholars and artists and writers coming out of African American studies, African diaspora studies, have called Afro-pessimism. I don't know if that's a term that you're familiar with,
I've never
but
heard.
it's a term that when I Okay. Well, when I first heard that term, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, I was like, Afro pessimism. That's not. I'm not a pessimistic person. I don't know what that is. I'm not. I don't know that I'm interested in that.
Mhm.
But friends of mine, who are many of whom were scholars, were sending me really interesting information and articles and and books and I started watching some videos and then just to kind of resume to summarize briefly the heart of what my understanding of Afro-pessimism is. It's a pretty there are a lot of people from a lot of different disciplines who address aspects of this in their work, but the heart of it is very close to what you were saying, Katrina. What it's saying is that the modern world as we know it, the world that was created by the transatlantic slave trade, by colonialism, by industrialism, by the rise of Western imperial powers, the modern world that we know is so profoundly anti-Black, is so profoundly inculcated with anti-Blackness that in order for Black people to really be free and in order for the world to really be a humane and different kind of place, this world that we're living in now has to disappear, has to go, has to be destroyed, has to be transformed completely, and something new has to come into being. Um, and so, I think there are a lot of people who are thinking about, well, what does that actually, what are you saying? What does that actually mean? And at one level, if you think about, powers and principalities, if you think about the structure of capitalism, the structure of white supremacy in the modern world, at one level you might say, wow, that's a lot to come up against. That's a lot. If you're saying that has to be transformed, that has to come down so that something else can be built, how is that going to happen? Okay, so now we're going to get to my mama. So she and early on in the conversation, I meant to mention her book, Remnant, a memoir of spirit, activism, and mothering. It's a book that my mom and I worked on together, and I finished after she passed. And it's essentially about the role of spirituality and compassion in African American organizing, social justice organizing. So my mom has passed in 2004. And I think, like anybody, most people, certainly, I think a lot of women whose mothers have passed, we still find some kind of way to maintain a connection with our mamas. And they find ways of helping us and encouraging us and guiding us from their place on the other side. And so I'm one of these people who, whenever I'm in a situation where I feel like I really need some guidance, I really need to know what to do or how to move, I call on her. Even now, I know she's on the other side, but she's still my mama and she still helps me and she still encourages me. So this was an experience I had. Um, I think it may have been right after um, George Floyd was murdered, and just before the um, the the extraordinary energy of the protests was right. Just in that moment between, and I was feeling, have mercy,
Yeah.
have mercy. This is just and and so I was in the shower, sad, and not sure, what to do, just feeling sadness. And as the water was coming down, and it may be helpful for whoever's hearing this to know that I have a special connection with water. My Orisha is Oshun, who is clear, fresh water, stream water, river water, waterfall water. And sometimes I get good insights in the shower because I'm connected to my mama at that point. Anyway, so I was showering and the water was coming down. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I heard my mama's voice. And my mama said, she said, we ain't giving up on life. And we ain't giving up on people. Just out of like that. We are not going to give up on life, and we are not going to give up on people. And it's interesting because it was almost like later that day or the next day, we started seeing this protest movement growing. And for me, one of the major beauties and messages and powers of this moment of affirming Black Lives Matter is it is saying we are not, I don't care who you are, who is in the White House, I don't care who thinks they're running the country economically, politically, we are not going to give up on life. And we are not going to give up on people. And we are going to have us a beautiful society. We are going to have us a democracy that is healthy and multiracial and inclusive and full of the energy and the wisdom and the grace of our ancestors, and that is worthy of the sacrifices that our ancestors have made. My mama came to me in the shower and said, we ain't giving up. No, you can't give up. We ain't giving up on people, and we ain't giving up on life. So I don't know. For me, those, like everybody, I get those moments when it's hard, But I think, I'm 57 this year, and in my life, I have experienced that we go through these times of hardship, of pain, of difficulty, but the value for me of community, of sisters and brothers, of family, is that those are the voices, those are the people, those are the energies who tell you, like my mama told me in the shower, we ain't giving up. We ain't giving up. We continue on because there's more beyond this, and there's more inside of us, and there's more in the universe than the meannesses and the impediments and the angers and the viciousness. There's so much more in the universe, and we're gonna go there. We're gonna go there, and we're gonna build something else. So that's just a message for any not giving up on life, and we are not giving up on people.
Wow, that gives me chills, because don't you wonder, like, why we're in one of the most, this is what they say, the most privileged, wealthiest, one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And here we are having started this movement here, and it's being shared in places that are not the wealthiest countries in the world. And why would they do that with us? And I think you just answered that question. There is more beyond this. And Mama Harding said, we are not giving up on life. There is more beyond this.
That's right.
Giving up on life. That is the answer.
And the other thing, just briefly, Katrina, that I think is important, especially for African Americans in North America, to recognize. Our movement and our history has been profoundly inspirational to people all over the world, and we don't always recognize that. But the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement, our leaders, people like Malcolm and Martin, the young people of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, the Black Panthers, those Angela Davis, those people, their representation went all over the world, and everybody from folks in Cuba and Vietnam to El Salvador and Nicaragua, Brazil, Venezuela, South Africa, people all over the world have taken inspiration from African Americans and from our culture. I mean, if you think about the way hip hop, for example, or jazz or soul has influenced, and what people, and it's not just because it's good music, which it is, of course, but I think people around the world who are suffering and who are fighting for freedom and for justice feel that in anything, almost anything. Now, I won't say blanketly anything, but in many of the things that come out of African American culture, that seed of resistance is in everything we create. It's in us and it's in the culture. And that's whether people understand English or not. They hear it, they feel it. And also, people in the United States in general, because of the colonial relationship that this country has had to other parts of the world, we know much less about what's happening in South America, in Africa, in Europe, in Asia than other people know about us.
Right.
And so one thing that most people around the world do know is that Black people are in the belly of the beast, and they are fighting in the belly of the beast. And they follow what the inspiration that the African American freedom movement represents. So it's really important for Black people in this country to know our role and our responsibility to not give up and to fight and to fight with integrity and to understand the connection between our movement and the movement of Latinx people and the movement of Native American people and the movement of Asian folks who are searching for justice and for a way to have their solidity and connection to this place be affirmed and recognized, and for justice, anti-imperial, anti-colonial justice all around the world. Folks look to us, and we need to recognize that our movement is connected to all kinds of movements for freedom around the world. So it doesn't surprise me. It makes me very happy. It makes me feel very honored that people around the world see us and say, we are with you, we support you. But there's a long history to that. And there's a reason for it, because Black people have really represented the front lines of fighting for justice and fighting for freedom for everybody in this country and worldwide. And unfortunately, a lot of our young folks don't know that, but that's a real history, and people around the world see it and know it, and they're responding to it.
Wow. Talking to you is like having a bowl of really rich, wonderful soup or stew.
Oh.
Or some Nigerian stew. Let me just be specific. With some eggs on the side. You just have to sit with it. There's so many aspects to this.
Some
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna mess up the end as we wrap up, and I'm hearing some feedback and it's coming from my end. My tech person is outside. My husband in Luton. He's outside with the 4-year-old. And so I need to turn off this little system. But I want to leave you. I think I can just put the screen on you for a moment. And I want you to address, which you've already said this, but I'm going to ask you specifically because I wanted this to be the focus of our dialogue today. Talk about what is that formula to heal, And what does it look like if we healed with our past? If we healed with our past,
Mm,
what could our future possibly look like? And what is what is that formula? Now that's the question. Now let me see if this technology is gonna work with me. Let me see. I'm gonna try this.
okay. All right. Well, wow. As Katrina was asking the question, what comes to my mind most strongly is the work of artists, and particularly the Afrofuturist and indigenous futurism, Afrofuturism and indigenous futurism, these visions that artists are developing of what a new, healed, transformed American society and world could look like. So I would just encourage us to explore the work that the artists are creating, the writers, the visual artists, the singers, the instrumentalists, um, because I think that there is a great richness in creativity. I don't have um, a model, a specific answer, but I do know that human beings are extraordinarily creative and are extraordinarily capable, and particularly people, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and poor folks who have come through a lot of struggles and who have had to hold on to a vision of what's possible, have had to hold on to their dreams, have had to hold on tightly to an alternative understanding of what we can do and be in this society, that there's a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of wisdom in Black communities, in Native communities, in Latinx communities, in Asian American communities. A lot of wisdom in communities of people who have struggled, because that's where you have to be creative. You got to figure out, how you going to make it through the month. How are you going to protect somebody who needs protection? How are you going to protect your own heart and your own spirit when there are folks who are trying to trample on it? So I would just say yes, yes, Teraki app. Yes, there is a lot of power and a lot of healing in the work of art, in the work of creativity, in the work of those folks in our communities who are using their imaginations to present something helpful and healing to all of us. So, yeah, that's it. That's it. It's been a good conversation, and looking forward to more with Katrina and with those of you who are listening.
Man, I could listen to you all day. I like it. I like it because it's such substance that I don't think I mean, you have to just let it sit with you. Just have to let it sit with you. So everybody who is watching and will watch this on the replay, just know that let the words resonate and it'll come to you. What you need to do, whatever messages transforming into action that you need to take, inspired by this conversation, it'll come to you. It will come to you. You don't have to answer this question directly, but here's what I want to leave with. My last words. I'm going to give you the last word for our conversation, but I would like people to think about this. Malcolm X was on his way to um, going to the UN, and he was going to the UN on behalf of Black folks, on behalf of brown and Black folks, I could say, in this country, and he was not able to complete that work. And I wonder now if anyone else sees this. We're in a situation where the government is very clearly working against us. And it's not just our community, but it's probably people who are not the 1%. That's how I perceive it. Um, and especially with people of color. And I'm wondering who is going to take up that work? Who's going to go to the UN? If we had to reimagine our future, if Malcolm had been able to complete that work, where would we be right now? And is that something that we need? Is it necessary? This is what I'm thinking about. I'm wondering who is going to do that, because I feel like it is needed. Um, I'm interested in what people out there think about that. I'd like for y'all who are watching and will watch this to think about that. And did you have a comment about that at all, Dr. Harding? And also, I'm just going to give you the last words to wrap up here.
You sent me this question ahead of time, Katrina, and I meant, excuse me, I meant to pull up something that I had seen a few days ago. I'll see if I can find it. But I saw an article maybe 3 days ago about a statement from the UN. I don't remember if it was an official statement from the United Nations as a body, or if it was just from one of the head officials in the UN, but acknowledging the Black Lives Matter resurgence, the movements, the protests, and deeply critiquing the United States for its history of anti-Black violence. So say that this it's on the radar. I think yeah, this is a really interesting moment that we're in, and I guess my last word is that I hope we can continue, that we can encourage each other, that we can strengthen each other, excuse me, that we can particularly support these young folks. And I know that it's not only young people, the people of all ages and all races and all gender expressions who have been involved in this, in the movements, in the protests in the streets. But many of the protests are led in particular ways by young people, and I am so proud of them. And I think that it's important of us who are, maybe 40 and older, to just let our young people know, we see you, we are so proud of you, and we will support you, and we will help you, and we will defend you, because you're doing work that the ancestors have put on your heart and in your spirit to do. And we are with you, and we are grateful, and we keep fighting. And we are not giving up on life, and we are not giving up on people, and Black lives matter.
Yes. Oh, applause. Many thanks
Katrina,
to you, Dr. Rachel Harding. I have posted a link where you can purchase her book, Remnants. And thank you. Many thanks for your work. And
it's my pleasure. And I thank you for your work, for this platform, for your healing energy, for your emphasis on wellness and healing and caring for ourselves and caring for our community. That's precisely what we have, what we have to do. And it gives us, it gives us the strength and the reinvigoration to be able to continue. So thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Okay, I got to give you some Wakanda love. That's how we do it.
All right.
All right, we will talk to you next time, sis.
Okay.
And goodbye,
All right.
everybody.
You have a good
Tuning in.
bye bye,
Bye
everybody.
bye.
Thanks for being with us.